Hi, and welcome to Hal Leonard's virtual NAMM booth for Believe in Music Week. I'm Jeff Stradel, Executive Vice President of Hal Leonard. You're in for some wild guitar playing as we welcome fellow Milwaukeean and guitar guru Greg Koch. Greg has authored so many books and videos for us, I think I've lost count. Let's just say he's one of our best-selling contributors, and we're lucky to have him with us here today. We've had a lot of requests for tab transcriptions of Greg's own music, and so the best of Greg Koch, Folio, is coming very soon. All right, let's get it started. Hello, Greg.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Gregory Cockery here in the Orange Room. I'm going to noodle a little bit and then we'll do some talking. Does that sound good? I like it. Whoa! I don't even know what that was, but I learned it all from Hal Leonard books. Listen, folks, Gregory Koch here in the Orange Room here in beautiful Wauwatosa, Wisconsin. Not far away, actually, from the main Hal Leonard complex where it all happens. I got involved with Hal Leonard about 20 years ago, initially on the Hal Leonard guitar method, of which I had the good fortune of rewriting with the original author, Will Schmidt. And we ended up doing books 1, 2, and 3. along with Jeff Schradel in a fragrant room in beautiful Wauwatosa / Milwaukee, Wisconsin. And since then, I've done books on everything from, I had a book called Lead Licks and Rhythm Riffs. I like to call those the alliteration twins. And I've done Stevie Ray Vaughan DVDs, blues DVD, a guitar Gristle DVD on my own kind of mayhem, and various other different things. And it's been a great relationship. It's been a lot of fun over the years. And, now that many years have passed and with the advent of the internet, I do a lot of stuff online, to have so many people reach out and say that the books and the videos and so on and so forth has made a big difference in their playing, and they were inspired by it. It's quite gratifying. So it's been a fun ride, and it continues. As Jeff mentioned in that introduction, a book of my transcriptions is coming out probably in the spring-ish, although I like to say during COVID, release dates are really more of a suggestion, but that's just the way it is. So we will take it when it comes, as I like to say. Anywho, so on that opening thing there, folks, I just kind of threw a bunch of different things together, kind of little, my version of a blues where I kind of take it from, a lot of different directions. But if we talk about, I guess, my latest books that I've done with the folks from Hal, the latest one was the Brave New Blues Guitar with a rather svelte Gregory Esquire on the cover there. You know what? COVID is hard because you're so near to your cereal all the time. And I find, never mind, we won't get into that. But that is a book that was kind of fun. We ended up doing a thing where I pitched it to my buddy Jeff Schradel. I was like, you know what? Sometimes I'll do things where I'll do, maybe like an Albert King lick, like a. Maybe I'll follow it up with a little Albert Collins-y type of thing, like. Or maybe a little B.B. King. So I kind of do these little variations of classic influences of mine, blues-wise and rock-wise, or blues/rock. And I thought it would be fun to do a book where maybe I would kind of show some, signature licks, or at least the way I do these various different individuals. Because sometimes, with Albert King and Albert Collins, they were tuned to like minor chords, and then obviously the fingerings are weird and so on and so forth. But that that contributed greatly to the way that their style sounds. So I just kind of doing standard tuning the best I can to conjure up the feel of those crazy cats. But I thought what would be fun with the book is to kind of delve into this trick bag of mimicking-ish these classic performers. But I thought, wouldn't it be fun to kind of meld people together? Like one side of the brain is Albert King and the other side of the brain is Albert Collins, so that might something like this, like. Maybe B.B. King's in there. Maybe Stevie Ray Vaughan. You get the idea. So there are little lessons in there, and there's video. It comes with, the book has transcriptions of everything in there, but then it also has a code for you to download like 3 hours of video tutorial on the stuff covered in the book. So I do these individual lessons on the little nuanced styles and approaches of these different players. And then I do a sample improvisation of combining different people. And the combinations are a little psychotic, which I dig because I'm all about, twisting it up for the kids. So I've got like Albert Collins and Albert King, like I just mentioned, or B.B. King and Billy Gibbons together, Cornell Dupree and Derek Trucks. Wait a minute, that's crazy. Eric Clapton and Freddie King, Jeff Beck and Jimi Hendrix, Jimmy Page and Johnny Winter, Roy Buchanan and Stevie Ray Vaughan. So it's a real fun ride. I had a blast doing it, and I'm very, very proud of it. So that's kind of the latest iteration of the Gristle that I've unleashed upon humankind via Hal Leonard. And the one I did before that was a book on slide guitar and standard tuning. It's kind of a funny thing. Anytime you do a thing with slide guitar on the internets, you'll do some, people are like, what tuning are you in? And a lot of times when you're playing slide, you're in open tunings, open E, open G, open A, open D, whatever the case may be. But a lot of times I'm just in standard tuning, and I'll do a thing with the slide, slide guitar. But what tuning are you in? I'm in standard tuning. So I thought it would be fun to do a book where I describe all the various different things that I do with slide guitar in standard tuning. One of the things is a right-handed muting technique that really helps. And when I play slide, especially if I'm on a guitar with 2 pickups, and this is what my signature Gristle Master with Reverend with my Fishman pickups in it. And so if I'm doing slide on this guitar, I'll kind of grab the second voice. So I push this little button in that gets a little bit of a fatter tone. And I might go on that bridge pickup, but I'll probably go back a little bit on the tone control just to kind of take a little bit of the razor blade away from the tone when I'm doing slide. So by going back on the tone a little bit, I get a little bit of a fatter sound. But also I do the muting technique with my right hand. So basically what I do when I go obviously into depth in the book again has transcriptions, but there's a code in there for you to download the video tutorials that go with the book. And I describe how I do this muting technique that is similar to what Dwayne Allman did, and Warren Haynes and Dickie Betts did, and of course Derek Trucks and a bunch of other different folks. But I've got my third finger on the high E string, middle finger on the B string, first finger on the G string, and my thumb kind of drapes over the bottom here. And that allows me to, especially when you're in standard tuning, because there's only a couple notes or maybe 3 at the most that are going to be sympathetic to each other, because in an open tuning, you can hit all the strings and slide across and it's going to sound great. But in standard tuning, you got to be careful. So that's where this muting technique comes in handy. So when I'm, if I'm hitting the B string, everything else is quiet except for those middle fingers going. So every time I hit an individual string with my right hand, I'm dampening all the other ones. And that gives it, plus the fingers on the strings give it a much more earthy sound, and you can kind of pop the strings a little bit more. So that's all good stuff. And then, I use my third finger for slide. People always say, why do you use your third finger versus pinky? Well, obviously, if you use your pinky, you get all of these digits to use for conventional playing. But I've noticed over years that this has a tendency to just go a little bit. It's not as perpendicular to the strings. It always just naturally has a tendency to just go a little bit horizontal on you. And it also has a tendency to be a little bottom heavy. So you have a tendency to pull off on the lower strings and be more down on the higher strings. That didn't make sense, but I think you know what I mean. So with the third finger, what it allows me to do is I'm able to apply equal pressure to all the strings, and it's much easier to stay perpendicular to the string set as well. As well as your third finger is just a lot more coordinated than your pinky. Your pinky is just, it's kind of a lame digit, if we're honest, unless you're doing pinky ups and you've, gained some massive muscle tone on your pinky, which would be weird. So the third finger allows you to get a little bit more control. Now, it does mean that now I've got to use these 3 fingers to do all the stuff I would do with the top 3 fingers if I was like this, but it can be done, and I do it all the time. So it's just a matter of perseverance. Plus, it looks more nasty. Anyway, some of the cool things that I go in there is I figured out this. I first heard Sonny Landreth do this thing where he fretted with the slide. It was on his first solo record back in the day. I can't remember what that record was called. Outward Bound, maybe. And he did this thing where he fretted with the slide, and you could hear the frets go by. And I just thought it sounded so cool. So he was actually pushing down with the slide. And then one day I was messing around with a Derek Trucks thing, because his intonation was always so good it just annoyed the hell out of me. Like, you rascal. And I was messing around with one of his, those tunes. I was figuring it out. And all of a sudden I just pushed down with the slide and I realized, holy cats, that will allow you to get some of that, like faster pentatonic-y, more vocal or sacred steel type of inflections with the slide. So when I do like, so I'm actually pushing down with the slide behind the fret. And then as soon as I find my pitch, then I lift the slide up and do regular vibrato. So it might be like, you got to be careful with it because it does sound, it can sound a little kind of vocoder-ish. Vocoder, is that what it's called? So I don't tend to use it as much anymore because I've kind of developed just the muscle memory to get the pitches right as a result of checking my tuning with the slide. But anyways, just a very cool technique. And I go over that a little bit in the book, as well as I do that in the Brave New Blues Guitar book when I go over the Derek Truck style. So a lot of different stuff in there, a lot of different things like, fingering behind the slide to get certain. Talk about tone and all that other kind of stuff. So those books are a lot of fun to do, and I'm very proud of them. They've turned out great. And again, it's so nice that people reach out and they say, that book really helped me get my chops together. It was very inspirational, all that kind of stuff. So good, clean fun as far as that's concerned. Can you dig it? Will you dig it? I'm thinking, yeah. Now, another book I reference a lot, ladies and gentlemen, to folk, is a book I did years ago. And, I do a bit of Skype lessons, especially now during COVID. And I'm not on the road. Usually I'm on the road between 125 and 150 days out of the year, but not last year. But thankfully I've been able to do a bunch of live streams from the room here, and I've been doing just fine. So thank you for asking. But I've also started to do a little bit more Skype lessons than usual. And I frequently reference this book that I did called Guitar Clues, Operation Pentatonic. And it is a book that comes with audio, not video, but there are transcriptions of various different things in here. Now, this is the idea behind this book, folks, was the fact that, the vast majority of people who are playing blues and blues rock know the pentatonic scales. They know the minor pentatonic scale. They know the major pentatonic scale. They might add that flatted fifth to the minor pentatonic scale to make it the blues scale, add the minor third to the pentatonic, major pentatonic scale to add, some people call it the soul scale or whatever. I just call it the major pentatonic with the added flatted third. But hey, I'm kooky. But I wanted to just take those two scales because that's something that people aren't going to have to harvest brain tissue in order to digest theoretically what's going on. And I wanted to add a bunch of cool stylistic things to that equation for people to learn to add some spice to their playing. So using the pentatonic scales as the backdrop for this rascal, I'm doing everything from my chicken picking stuff, whammy bar, wiggling volume swells, pedal steel stuff, open string pull-off vibratos and bending, all that kind of, and then playing with the different intervals that are in the pentatonic scales. And then I have sample improvisations over rhythm tracks that are pretty cool too. And all the rhythm tracks are transcribed as well. So it is a veritable bonanza of different stuff. I started talking about volume swells when I started off this little soiree. I started doing these little volume swell thing. I think the first time I learned how to do a volume swell was probably from, from Roy Buchanan via Jeff Becker. Or on Allman Brothers Live at the Fillmore. I'm in memory of Elizabeth Reed. And then a buddy of mine locally by the name of Jason Klagstad played in a band called Plum Loco. We played at my wedding, by the way. And he used to do this thing where he would do volume slurs and he would do this little... And so volume slurs are a lot of fun. You got to be careful how fast you do them because your belly starts to jiggle. Not a good look. But anyway, So it's the idea of you just have the volume all the way down on the guitar, you hit a note, and then you bring it up afterward. And it really works well for things like, pedal steel type of thing. All that kind of stuff. Now, I do like to do swells with the tone controls as well. All that stuff works out to be quite fun. Anyway, so a lot of that type of stuff is in that Guitar Clues book. And it does have a bunch of fun lead stuff and different techniques. And one of the things I just want to pass on before I start taking some questions, because I think we're probably getting to question time. I'm so heavily caffeinated. These things go so fast. Oh, Lord have mercy. Anyway, I was going to say, people ask a lot of times about improvising and say, I always play the same thing over and over again. After I've played 2 choruses of a blues, I've played every lick that I know. And what I like to say is when you're improvising, it should all be about being in the moment. So whatever scales, even though that sounds cliche as hell, but what I mean by that is that nothing is preventing you from making good music right now with whatever skill set you have. And the biggest thing about it is to be conversational with your playing. So whatever you're about to play should be influenced by what you just played. So a lot of times that's just call and response, it doesn't always have to be verbatim call and response, maybe a rhythmic call and response. Whatever the case may be, but I always put this little tidbit in there as well. It's just, especially if you're into more bluesy stuff and emotive playing that involves bends and vibratos and slides and things of that nature, is try not to let any more than like 3 notes go by before you add a vibrato, a bend, or a slide, because that makes you take a breath and figure out what's going on. Like a... So all of that was just kind of following what was that initial statement. Well, the initial statement I follow up on, and you keep on following up on these little, this conversation you're having with yourself, or you're building a story. And then it's not like, I've used every lick, that I know, because maybe there's no licks in there at all. It's just kind of random utterances that you're following as you do this little dialogue. Anyway, so I hope that assists you, ladies and gentlemen. Amy, doggone it. Should we do some questions out there and see what we got happening?
I think that's a great idea. Hey, everyone, I'm Amy from Hal Leonard, and I'm just going to jump on to help Greg answer some questions for you guys today. So just to kind of go further on improvising, Greg, we have a question from Mike.
Mike.
When you're improvising, how do you visualize the fretboard?
You know what?
Like intervals, numbers, arpeggios.
It's kind of all of the above. It's kind of a mixture of sometimes it's, I'm just following my ear with things that I know, but sometimes there'll be a visual thing. And I'll look at something and I'll go, well, this technically should work. I've never really done it, but let's see what happens. That will be a visual grab. I'll look down and go, And so I'll do it, and then I'll work around it and realize that I can add all these other notes in visually around it. And I guess what's happened over time is that there's just such a buffet of crap in here and now on here that I have different options. That sometimes it's I'll typically go, well, this shouldn't work, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then I have to dig myself out of the hole. So it's a variety of things. It's arpeggios, it's playing over the chords, it's following my ear, and sometimes it's just I'll think I'll get myself in trouble and see how I can get out of it, knowing that really all's fair as long as you resolve. So, but there's a fair bit of stuff over the years that's, it's modal based. It's substituting different pentatonics on top of each other. It's melodic minor, it's harmonic minor, it's whole tone, it's diminished, all that kind of, I'm throwing it all in there. It's all available to me, but usually I'm following the ear and seeing where it takes me after that initial statement is made. So I hope that helps. Does that sound right? Amy, did that sound right?
Yes. A plus, A plus. And then just to kind of add on that, I mean, honestly, you probably just need to spend more time practicing improvising. That's the only way you can get, more comfortable doing that. And right.
Well, absolutely. And adhering to some kind of time. Like a lot of times I'll just be tapping my foot on the old hardwood floor and going to it. Sometimes it's great to do stuff with a looper. And typically what I'll do is I'll put a little, I have a metronome on my iPhone. And so I'll put that on and I'll listen to that as I'm doing the looper, and then, making sure I'm stepping on the looper again at the right time. Because isn't that a drag when you've recorded the whole thing and you hit the looper just a little bit wrong? You get that hiccup every time. So that's where the metronome comes in handy, just to listen to as you're doing the loop. But loopers are a great help, but it's also important to listen to yourself, not from a narcissistic, like dig me type of a thing. But I find that in the moment, we think things sound one way. And then upon further review, the things that we thought were cool are scatological. And then the things that we thought weren't that great are really cool. So it's good to self-adjudicate, especially when it comes to vibratos and tone and stuff like that. So there's that.
Awesome. Next question is from James. Have you been listening to any artists during quarantine that surprised you?
It's a strange thing. I kind of do deep dives on folk, and a lot of times it's going backwards. So I'll give you an example. Like over the years, people would always say, "Aren't you into Rory Gallagher?" And I'd be like, "Rory Gallagher, not really," because it wasn't initially in my my older siblings' record collections. But Cream and Hendrix and Allman Brothers and James Gang and Mike Bloomfield, these types of people were. So once I got into those people, I would go backwards. I'd say, okay, well, who's this Albert King guy? Who they're talking about? B.B. King and Earl Hooker and Otis Rush and Hubert Sumlin and yada, yada, yada. So sometimes the contemporaries of some of the biggies that I was into kind of eluded me, because I'm like, well, I don't know. I just never really got into that stuff. I'm already into these guys and they're really great. You know what I mean? So someone gave me a Rory Gallagher CD, these Irish guys. I was playing in Germany somewhere, and these Irish guys flew over, and because I haven't played in Ireland yet, and they flew over to see us, and they gave me Rory Gallagher 74 Irish tour. And I heard that. I was like, now I get it. Now I'm in. And so during one of the people I got into during COVID, I did the deep dive on Rory, listening to all the different eras and so on and so forth, and reading up on them and all that other kind of stuff. And last night, I'm going through, I finally got a subscription to iTunes where I can listen to anything, right? Because I never had any kind of subscription service before. So Frank Marino and Mahogany Rush, I would hear him over the years and think, that guy's really good. But I never really listened. So now that he's the next person I'm doing the deep dive on. So it changes, it's sometimes it'll be, but during COVID, this is what's been happening. And, always old blue stuff that I like to listen to. And I'm a sucker for old bootlegs. So a lot of times, especially at night when I'm going to bed, I'll listen to bootlegs of like Cream or Zeppelin bootlegs and stuff like that. Cause or old Hendrix bootlegs, man, I'm a sucker for it. So I'm kind of lame that way. I could listen to the same stuff. Like my son will say to me, how many times can you listen to Zeppelin? I'm like, yeah, you don't understand though. They're playing the same songs, but they're never played the same way twice. And it's always fun to listen to that vernacular being used in different ways all the time. So there you have it.
Great. And I think we have time for a few more questions here.
Well, all right.
You're doing great so far, Greg. You're doing great.
The caffeine is working.
Okay. From Ryan, slide guitar duel with Dwayne and Lowell. Who wins?
Well, totally different vibes with those guys. I mean, and again, the competitive aspect of music is something that I think is inherent for some reason in popular myth. But you know, as for musicians, it's just like you just want to do your thing, and you know, it's like you want to be the best you that you can be, and so the whole competition thing is not really a thing. But in the spirit of your question, I understand kind of what you're going at. I'm a huge Duane Allman fan from his stuff, you know, to this day I love listening to old Allman Brothers bootlegs as well, because there was just this swampy kind of go for the throat recklessness in his playing, because he'd go for stuff and sometimes it was a little sour, but it's like the rest of the stuff that was good made up for the sour. Whereas Lowell had a thing and he just kind of kept it within that thing, and it was glorious and very vocal sounding. But he was, you know, and Duane was more of an open E or standard tuning guy, whereas Lowell was more of an open G, open A type of an individual, which is kind of a different mentality. Sometimes they both would delve into. I really never really heard Duane delve more into those tunings so much. He was more kind of in the Elmer James school of things, so the open E or standard, whereas Lowell did the open G and open A type of thing more than he did like an open D or something like that. And plus Lowell would play the Strat with, you know, compressor. He used a lot of compression, which is cool. And I got to know Paul Barrere real well, and always in the number 4 position on the toggle switch of his Strat. Never ventured away from that. It was always the 4 position, and it sounded really bright, almost like the 2 position, but always a number 4, always compression. And that's what made that sound happen. I'm pretty sure Lowell did the same thing too, even though he had that telly pickup in the back position. But I think they stumbled upon that 4 position on, you know, the middle and neck position on the Strat with compression, and that worked. And let the good times roll.
Okay, I think we have one more question here.
All right.
From Carrie, what is your advice for beginners who are discouraged?
Well, you know, as I kind of alluded to earlier, you know, you just have to have fun with whatever skill set you have at the time. I mean, guitar players were always so self-deprecating. Oh, I suck. When am I going to be better? Oh, when is this going to happen? Oh, if I only would do this. And at some point, you just got to be like, I just love playing. I just love learning and doing, you know, playing a little bit every day, the sound of the guitar, the feel of it, the smell of it, you know. So for me, it's always a matter of like when I talk to people I'm doing Skype lessons, I'm like, nothing stops you from enjoying making music with whatever skill set you have in the moment. And you can always add more stuff to it to make it great. But just enjoy whatever you got in the moment. And if you keep going at it every day, if you pile it up for like a weekend and say, well, don't really practice during the week, but, you know, on Saturday I spent 3 hours, you're better off doing, you know, an hour every day or a half hour every day than multiple hours on just a weekend, just to keep that muscle memory going and all that other kind of stuff. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, that's a great way. That's a really great way to put it. I think the only way that you can get more comfortable and more assured with your playing is just by doing it.
Yes.
I don't think there's any other way. Well, Greg, what do you think? Do you want to close it out by playing for us a little bit more?
Sure, I could do that. One of the things I've done over the years is these volume swell, playing in time with the volume swell, a tune called Tonus Diabolicus, which is in my Greg Koch play-along book, as well as the Guitar Gristle DVD, but it's something goes something like this here. There we go. Thanks so much, folks, for tuning in. Appreciate it. Thank you, Hal Leonard. Thank you, Nam. See you next year.